I'm PhillipMilano, and I'm not afraid to answer the questions that most people just wonder about, no matter how touchy or taboo they might be. Feed your curiosity. Read my column, Dare to Ask, every Tuesday in the Florida Times-Union. Let's get started with a question right off the bat here. It's a simple enough question, right? I grew up in a primarily white area, so I was not exposed to many cultures. What would take place during a typical weeknight in a black family? Asks Ellen from New Jersey. Now, this is one of the first questions I got to my website. And I remember when I got it, running to my wife and saying, this project is going to have legs. Because here was someone who apparently was so separate from another group that she actually thought that there was such a thing as a typical night for an entire race of people. But more fascinating to me was thinking about what her possible motives might have been. You know, was she asking out of arrogance? Was she asking out of ignorance? Or was she just asking out of innocence? Well, one thing I've learned over the course of this long project is that maybe we don't have to assign a value to all these questions. Maybe we don't have to judge them. Sometimes I think we're so obsessed with trying to figure out someone's ulterior motive that we kind of box ourselves in and to not having an opportunity to talk with somebody we've never talked to before about something we've never talked about before. Well, after I started the project, I started to get a lot of media reaction, and Leonard Pitts, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the Miami Herald, heard about what I was doing and kind of explored the site and saw this and wrote about this question in a foreword to my first book. And he writes, "Hearing that, part of me wants to make bad jokes about roasting white babies on a bonfire of Michael Bolton CDs while eating fried chicken and drinking malt liquor. And part of me just wants to cry because the question is heartbreaking in the very mundaneness of it. It tells me that we are still mysteries to one another, so much so that even the most minor details are cause for wonder." That's really what yforum.com and my book, I Can't Believe You Asked That, and my newspaper column, Dare to Ask, are all about. It's about letting people talk about these kind of edgy, provocative topics related to race and religion, etc., so that we don't have to walk around with these stereotypes and incorrect assumptions. It's one of the reasons that I started yforum.com in the first place. It was sort of born out of a frustration that we're all so bound up in fear of offending that nobody wants to talk to each other anymore. The only real rules I have at my site are if you have a question, ask it. But ask it out of sincerity because you really want to know the answer. Because ultimately I think that all of us, including myself, still have a ton to learn about each other. And there's nothing wrong with that, guys. Sometimes I think admitting your own ignorance can be blissful. To sort of coin a phrase, if it means that you're opening up your receptors to learning something about someone else, which I think is so critical in these crucial times we're living in, right, where we're seeing all these culture clashes. You know, I don't think that our hunger for reality is going to be met by a PC world. But enough about the whys and wherefores of why. Why don't we start looking at some of these questions that have come in? That's what everybody's here for, right? So not everything is all fun and games. You know, I get some pretty serious questions, some pretty heavy stuff. And this came in from Joseph from Tokyo. To African Americans, how common is it to hear the word nigger used as an intentional insult by non-African Americans? And it's a real reality check for me. You know, every time I think I've heard it all, or you know, I'm Mr. Cosmopolitan, I know everything. I remember when I got this, I'm thinking, well, it can't happen that often, right? Much to my surprise, I got a lot of responses from African Americans who say it still happens. This is from a black female from North Carolina. My husband was riding his bike when some white males in a car rode past, threw a bottle at him and said, "Nigger, get a car." Of course, that was cowardly, but these days people have more sense than to use that word to your face. Had they been face to face, there would have been a fight. It's that simple. Don't use the word. JG, a straight male from Charlotte. Why is it homophobic to believe there are some situations in which gays or lesbians should be excluded? Sexually is an unfortunate aberration, like other genetic disabilities. I embrace the right of gay people to compete in the marketplace, except in military basic training and teaching up through middle school. Hey man, I'm just reading, okay? I count a number of gay individuals among my coterie of friends. Oh, groans. Big time groans on that one. Why, what a fortunate coterie of gay friends you do have. They have in you a friend with such affection, respect, and understanding for them, yet from whose every pore seeps contempt and fear. You don't need to ask questions about gay people, you need to ask questions about friendship. My brother-in-law says people from Arab countries wipe their behinds with their bare hands. Is this true, asks Mary. Why do white people smell like wet dogs when they come out of the rain? From AK, a Jewish male from Sitka, Alaska. As a son of a Jewish mom, I experienced a lot of guilt growing up. From what I've heard and read, making their sons or daughters feel guilty seems to be characteristic of Jewish moms. Why is this? Do women fart? When a woman is with their close gal pals and nobody is around, does she just let one fly? I mean, I can't imagine anyone holding it in their entire friggin' lives. Why do black men look good in purple suits, but white men look like dorks? Why do some men find breast implants so sexy? Many of these actresses on TV have malformed breasts. They look like half a basketball stuck to their chests. The Irish curse, a small penis. I heard this mentioned in the movie Good Will Hunting. Is this true? Says Pete. Why do fundamentalists cite the Old Testament for their views on homosexuality when it's not part of the Ten Commandments? If they follow that, how about all the other stuff in there like dietary restrictions, asked Claire from LA. Why do black women who are overweight exude self-confidence? Most white women hate themselves. They try desperately to change their bodies. Yu, who's a black female. As a black woman who's been overweight most of my life, I can say one reason for the confidence is our men seem to prefer our curves. That's They tell us they prefer a curvy size 9 to a skinny size 6. A size 9 ain't that big, right? We did not necessarily internalize the national standard of beauty. It did not include us. But bulimia and anorexia are increasing in young black teens. As young blacks, you know, if they start looking more at the mainstream culture, magazines and stuff, that starts to get into their heads too. You know, then I talked to Renee Hicks. She's a college speaker. She's a big black woman. She's hilarious too. She was just talking, man, and I was just scribbling. Even though black women walk around going, it's okay to be overweight, it's only because the pressure is not on them to hold up to the Halle Berry standard set up by white folks. I thought it was interesting that she used Halle Berry, who's half black and half white. Think about it. When a black man gets really successful, the first thing he does is go out and get a trophy wife. Rarely do you see them come up with some big, fat black woman, do you? And black women don't like it. Believe me. We've been cultivated, she says, to eat foods to make us fat. Hell, when I was growing up, I ate what my mother gave me. It's like my mom would have put pork in Jell-O if you'd let her. Hey, it's a meal and a dessert. Pretend they're marshmallows. Even though we don't like being fat, we can get away with being a little larger. Black men do like a little bit more booty. These white women are starving themselves. How does a man think he's going to have sex with them if they look like they could play hula hoop with a Cheerio? Listen, I'm gonna wrap it up there and just say that it's really hot in here. I guess my one rule goes kind of back to what I had you all say at the beginning, and I've got a handout that I guess Allison will give to you, and it kind of goes through my like 7 steps for how to have a dialogue like this with someone who you meet and you want to know something about? Because I'm not advocating just going up and pissing someone off saying something. There's a time and a place for these kinds of conversations, but I think that if we all work at it, we can do it. But I guess my overall rule is to expect the unexpected. And if one straight, white, married guy can do this from his dusty office in his garage in Jacksonville, think about what we all could do if we all together just put a little bit more effort into having these kinds of conversations. Maybe we could break down some more of these myths and get talking to each other, which is really what I'm advocating. Thank you all. I've had a great time. You guys were excellent. Great commentary.